Hi everyone, welcome back to the Helen Olivia virtual workshops. My name is Lindsay, I am the lead designer here and I'm going to be leading you through today's class, which is our Totally Tulips class. So we've got our gorgeous bucket of blooms that includes 3 different varieties of tulips that we're going to be using today. You also have your bag of materials, and that includes a white ceramic vase that we're going to be designing in for this class. Also a few zip ties. There's no chicken wire for this class, so don't think you're missing it if you've taken class with us before and you're used to seeing that. We are going to be designing with just zip ties and grouping together our blooms today. You also have a recipe sheet in your bag, and this includes all the ingredients that we're going to be using for this class, and you can go ahead and follow along as I am arranging. So the other thing that you're going to need is a source of water so you can fill up your vases, and you're going to need your floral tools. I've got a pair of clippers and a floral knife with me today. If you have both, that's fabulous. If you just have one, then clippers will do. You can also use a sharp pair of kitchen scissors. Just make sure they're quite sharp, especially for tulips. You want to get those sharp cuts on everything, so just be mindful of that as we're going. And go ahead and fill your vases up. You want to leave about 1 inch of space in this arrangement, or in this vase, just because with tulips, the water does displace quite a bit because the stems are hardy. So when you're sticking those tulips in, we might have some spillage, so have a towel nearby if you need it. Now let's go ahead and get started. So once you've gotten your vase filled up with water, we are going to grab for our mini green, and we're going to get that placed straight away. Looks like one of mine is broken, but that's okay. So for the mini green, you're going to remove that plastic as the first step, and then we're going to remove any of the low-lying leaves. When you hear me say low-lying leaves, it means anything that's falling below the head of the flower. So we're going to pull all of those off. You can strip them easily with your hand. If you don't want to do that, you can also use your knife and strip those leaves off. Then we're going to take everything and cut it at a sharp angle. And you want that sharp angle so there's a lot of space for the flower to drink the water through. Then we're going to angle these into our vase. So let's take our first one and place it. And we're going to be doing a grouped design today, so I kind of want to choose to have a back for this arrangement because it will be 3-sided. So choose what the back of your arrangement is, and we're going to line the back with the 3 mini green. This one is broken. I'm just using it so you can see how it would be in an arrangement with 3, so it looks as similar to yours as possible, but typically I would not be able to use this, and I'm going to pull it out after we're done with this because the stem is too short and it's going to end up out of water very quickly. So I'm just going to lean that in just to give you an idea of how the 3 will look. And take your 3rd mini green and strip those leaves off, cut it at an angle either with your knife or your clippers. And then we've got 3 placed around one side. So that is going to become the back of the arrangement, what's facing you right now. From there, we are going to grab for our Aurelia, which are hidden, and they are these shiny green leaves. So we're going to use these Aurelia to back our arrangement. Since we're doing a 3-sided kind of group design, I am going to nestle 2 of these in between the mini green. So 1 there, and you want the pretty shiny side facing towards you. This lighter side is going to be in the back, and that's going to be your front. So since these are already quite short, you don't want to cut off much length at all. Give it the slightest trim at the end, just so it has a fresh cut, because the stems of flowers and greenery will start to oxidize as soon as they hit the air when you take them out of water. So that's why you want to give it a fresh cut so it is ready to drink once it's gone in. So since I've got 2 placed, I'm gonna place a 3rd and kind of splay them out to one side. See how it's easier to see in front of my light color sweater. And then we've got a 4th, and we are going to place that here. And it feels kind of strange designing with Aurelia if you haven't before, but really you're just creating that back for your arrangement to kind of cup everything and hold it into place. Next thing we're gonna do is grab our umbrella fern, and with the umbrella fern, you wanna give it a nice fresh cut, and then we're gonna spray these out a little bit. I love the wildness of this texture. I don't know if wildness is a word, but it's just a really fun texture. So you can kind of spray it out farther than you might think you would normally want to. Just think about the fact that we've got a lot of things that we're gonna be placing on top of it. So if it looks kind of crazy now, it's gonna look totally normal once the flowers are in. So now that that greenery is splayed out, we're gonna place our hyacinth first. I like to go ahead and get our hyacinth in because they are such hardy stems. With the hyacinth, you're gonna take off these loose leaves, and then you're gonna make a cut, and you're gonna place these in, and I'm gonna segment them all together. So everything is gonna be kind of grouped and modern feeling. So that means I'm gonna nestle them all up close in a little cluster. Everything's gonna be kind of clustered in this arrangement for the most part. So I've got 1 and I've got 2 in. Now we're gonna place that 3rd. And then I'm gonna take a look at this from the front. My mini green is falling out. Just make sure you're tucking that Aurelia and it's nice and secure. If things feel like they're sliding out at this time, it's totally fine. We've got time to adjust. So I have done my little hyacinth cluster there. And now, since we've got lemon green a little further back, since we have lots of tulips, we're gonna go ahead and get those all prepped and ready to go in the vase. So we've got 3 types of tulips for this class. On your recipe sheet, it says Beyonce tulips. We just didn't catch that before we hit print on these. These are not the Beyonce tulip. These are called Air. They're a variety of parrot tulip. They have a really cool pink and yellow and green kind of tricolor coloring, and they have that really cool shaped leaves because they're a parrot tulip variety. So with tulips, what we're gonna do for all of them is we're gonna clean the stems and then we're gonna stack them in bundles to get ready to zip tie. So for all tulips, you wanna pull those lower leaves off. For these, the leaves aren't close enough to the head of the flower to use. For something like this, you can totally leave it on, but I would remove any of the ones that fall a little lower. Same goes with the rest of these, and that's how we prep the tulips to get ready to zip tie. So once those are all prepped, we are going to make a little stack. So I like to just take the first 2 in my hand, and then I'm stacking the rest on top, and you're just creating a little bundle. And you can just kind of lay them in at an angle when you're laying them on top. And then I've got kind of a shorty, but that is how you get a cluster. So see how pretty that comes together? This is what we're gonna zip tie. So I need this to face me for a second. And the two of the elements that we're using today are phototrophic, which means that they continue to grow even once they are cut. So with tulips and with hyacinth, they continue to grow even when they're in the vase, as my short mini green falls out. So what that means is that we want to tuck our tulips quite low, because they will continue to grow in your vase towards light. So if you have them near a window, they'll actually start to lean. Hyacinth will continue to bloom and open. So you want to tuck everything pretty low. For this first grouping, I'm going to cut all of them to the same length. And I'm going to cut the zip tie so it's short. You're just zip tying around that bundle. You don't want it to be too tight because these stems can snap easily. So start with one length and see how that measures up with the vase. And then we're going to place it. And I'm actually gonna go rogue and take this greenery out for right now. And then I can more easily show you. We're gonna go ahead and get this cluster placed. So I want one grouping over to the side, and I'm gonna lean it in like that. I think it's gonna be easier to add our Aurelia in afterwards, after we've got the tulips in. So we'll come back to that. Just stay with me. The next tulips that we're gonna grab are our Florence. Our Florence are these really pretty pink and white. And actually, let's do those last. Let's grab our purple, these are the purple prince. So we've got purple moon roses, purple prince tulips. So same thing goes with the others. You're gonna strip off any of those outer leaves, and you can keep these that are close to the flower. They add a little touch of greenery. You don't have to keep them on, but you can definitely keep the leaves that are close, and just be gentle with the tulips because they do snap quite easily. Especially some of these are really flimsy, so just be gentle. And we're just taking all that off. And then once we've gotten all of those purple princes cleaned, we're gonna bundle these and we're going to zip tie them. So, almost done. This is my last purple prince. So we are gonna do the same thing that we did with the air tulips. So let's go ahead and get our tulips in a bundle. And if you've got some rogue greenery that's messing up, just pull it off. You're just gonna lay them all together at about the same length. With tulips, they look a lot more beautiful when they're more uniform and kind of pave, rather than kind of all at different heights, which is a lot different than designing with, say, roses or other elements that we use typically. So it just looks a lot more intentional when they're all similar in height. It just gives you that really pretty modern shape. So that's our next grouping. It doesn't have to be all perfectly the same height, but around the same height is great, and always looks lovely. So then we're going to zip tie, and if you haven't zip tied before, you want to make sure that the bumpy part of the notch is facing outward when you're tying. Poke that guy through and pull tight. And if you get it on backwards, you can totally flip it around. And there's an extra that we've included as well. So that is our next grouping. I zip tied it around mid-height, and then I'm gonna cut all of these off at about the height of the vase. Since I've got my purple or my blue hyacinth down here, I want this dark purple to kind of lay right on the hyacinth because I want that kind of darkness and darkness. See how that is looking? Now we're gonna grab our Florence. So Florence is this pretty pink, white to pink tulip. These are great for reflexing as well, so I'm gonna try to reflex a couple of these to use. So let's save 3 and set those aside to reflex, and the rest of them we're gonna do another little grouping and zip tie those off. So let's clean these tulip stems gently and get all of these ready to zip tie together. And designing with tulips makes for a super simple centerpiece. So next time you see like bundles of tulips at the grocery store, it's the easiest way to kind of group something together that looks really pretty and intentional and, you know, modern, is by just having groupings zip tied. So if you saw like 3 colors at the grocery store, you could totally combine them all in a vase, you know, fill with a little water. You can, they're really, really easy to work with once you know how to. So the easiest way is to just always make a little stack. And you could do this with like 50, 100 tulips and, you know, get a really pretty rounded shape. They always look so nice. So just a tip for future. Okay, and since we've got kind of this light pink, I'm gonna splay these out a little taller. So since they are phototropic, like I was saying before, you want to keep those stems pretty short, especially for these 2, I'm nestling them down quite low, because like I said, they will continue to grow. So you don't want them like growing, you know, crazily. You don't want them starting out too long so they become extra long. So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna zip tie these about halfway down the stem. I've trimmed them to the length I want, which is just a bit taller than the air tulips. Then I'm gonna trim my zip tie, and I'm gonna place these guys out to the side there. So that is how I've clustered my 3 varieties. And now we're gonna pop that greenery back in, because I think it's a little more manageable now that we've got some stems in there. So I'm taking this Aurelia and I am just backing these blooms up. So we're creating a back. This is gonna be great on like your kitchen counter, or, you know, an entryway table, something that's against a wall or a piece of art is really great for a 3-sided design. So let's get all of those Aurelia in, and then grab your umbrella fern. We'll get those back in the vase as well. And then we're gonna add in those roses before we grab the last of our tulips. So we've got our 1 umbrella fern splayed out to one side, and then I'm actually gonna go and change it up and put this low in front near the hyacinth. So I get a little greenery moment in the front. So see how fun and tropical, kind of modern it looks. I just love that, and I wish I had a, and so from the back you're just gonna see your mini green basically, and the tulips, I mean the Aurelia. Now let's grab our roses, and for our roses we're gonna do the same as the tulips, just different. We're gonna clean these stems. So let's go ahead and remove any of the low-lying leaves. We're also gonna remove any of the thorns. If there are thorns, there's a few ways you can remove them. You can trim them off with your clippers. You can use your knife and slice them off like this, or you can press them off with your thumb. Totally up to you. And then we're gonna remove the guard petals, which are any, and these have got some hardy thorns, so be aware of that, especially if you're not wearing gloves. So let's pop off any of the outside petals that look damaged. With Purple Moon roses, they have this really pretty mauve purpley tone, so honestly you can normally leave on the guard petals if you want, because they're still pretty. I'm just gonna pop, I think, 1 or 2 off of each of these. So getting all those clean, and then we're gonna do little groupings of roses. Perfect, and the last one. Just be really careful with the thorns. All right, last one's ready. So now that we have our roses prepped, oh, I just lost the lighting in here. Now that our roses are ready, we are going to do little groupings. So I'm gonna do 3 and 3 probably. And I'll face this towards you. I've got 1 and I'm gonna stick it right there behind these purple tulips. And you wanna make sure the stems are long enough where they're allowing them to be taller than the tulips. Remember, the tulips will continue to grow, so leave those rose stems a little longer so you really can see them. That is 3. And then I'm gonna do, I've got a little hole right here. So I'm going to do 2 here. So anywhere you've got a hole lower, I would try to do 2 roses, and then you've got 1 more rose, and you always like to visually kind of create trios. They don't have to be on top of each other. So I'm gonna place this one here. It visually draws your eye down so it balances the top roses. The next thing we're gonna do is grab these tulips and we're gonna reflex the petals. When you're reflexing a tulip, just be very gentle, but what you do to reflex is pull a petal backwards, and then you're going to press your thumb into the center of the petal towards the bottom, gently flip the petal. And you just do it extremely slowly and gently so you don't rip any of the petals, and you can flip all of these out and it just creates a completely different flower. It's so fun. So now that we've got that, I'm gonna trim one of my roses a little bit. It's a little too long. Now that we have our reflex tulips, I'm gonna place these in various spots. Just such a fun look. So now that we've done that first one, you're just gonna do the second and the third, and we're gonna place these around. It's a really fun way to just transform a tulip completely, make them look really expensive and gorgeous. Not all varieties will reflex well, so this is a variety that definitely does. Anything with the long, smooth, kind of flat petals will reflex well. Anything that's a little more pointy, like these purple princes, they're not gonna look as pretty when you flip the petal because it's just gonna create a kind of pointed edge. So look out for tulips like this and you might be able to reflex them. And you get a lot faster the more you practice, so if it takes you a little while to flip one, that's okay, we're all just learning. So we're gonna stick our second one in, and I'm gonna kind of let mine splay out because I don't want it to sit too flush to the rest of them. And then I've got a third, and I am kind of sticking with that concept of creating a trio. So I want a third up top, and I'm gonna tuck it down. So I've got one here that's sticking out a little further, and then I've got one up here. It's a little hard to see from your angle, but it's a little lower. I just am kind of trying to create some dimension with those. Let me make sure that the rest of my tulips are not falling out. Get all my Aurelia nice and tight. And now that we've placed those, one of my roses is not cooperating. Now that those are all in, let's grab our hellebore and we'll pop that in for some contrast, and then we're going to grab our clematis and that'll be our finishing touch. So since we've got kind of a dark to light vibe, I want to put one piece of dark over here, but I'm gonna mix 2 pieces of dark on that side so everything kind of blends more seamlessly. So I'm gonna stick one hellebore down here with the purple princes, and I'm giving a fresh cut to everything that I'm inserting into the arrangement per usual. So make sure fresh cut every time. And then I'm doing one piece of hellebore down low on the right over here, just because I want to kind of blend this color into here seamlessly. So now I've got our last piece of hellebore, which I'm actually able to cut into 2 because this stem is long enough to use. And in between my 2 types of tulips, I've got the perfect place to kind of pop this hellebore in. So I'm gonna place that one there. And then the last piece, I'm just gonna place down here with the hyacinth as well, right next to the other piece of hellebore. So once the hellebore's in, let's grab the clematis and then we will be all done. So clematis, you can normally split if it's long enough. This one is not long enough to use twice, and I actually have a broken stem, which is fine, but so I'm gonna trim that off, and I'm gonna pull off these lower leaves. Sadly, I won't be able to use those blooms just because it's a little too short for this arrangement. And I'm going to put this piece up top just because I want a bit of greenery with that side. This piece I am able to split, so I've cut it right in the middle here, so you can use this piece and this piece. Since this is longer, I'm gonna use this somewhere where it kind of sprays out the back, and then this piece is going to have to be in closer to the front since the stem is quite a bit shorter. So like that. So that's our little touches of clematis, and I am actually going to try to turn the light on again. Sorry about that. Just because it's kind of hard to see, it's super gloomy in the studio. So here is the finished arrangement. It is a gorgeous mix of tulips and hellebore and roses and greenery, and it's a 3-sided design. So the back of your arrangement should look like this, just Aurelia mini green. With tulips, they drink a lot of water, they will continue to grow, so if you ever feel like they're getting too tall or it's bothering you, the shape that they're giving off, you can pull out a clump of them and trim them if you would like. The other thing you just need to do is care for your arrangement, give it fresh water every day. With a 3-sided design, it's really easy to stick your finger in the back and just make sure that there's water up to the top. So I would just top off with fresh water. And yeah, your arrangement should last for a few days and look really beautiful. And these hyacinth will bloom out. Your tulips will kind of open up and get a little bigger. So just enjoy. Thank you so much for joining us for our virtual workshops. We've got a lot of great workshops coming up. So definitely check out our workshop page and sign up for either an in-person or a virtual one that's coming soon. So we will see you next time, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.